Question for you. When do the ends justify the means? It's one of the most debated ethical questions out there. Is it ever okay to do something questionable or even outright wrong if the outcome is good enough? Or is this the start of a slippery slope where we justify anything as long as we like the result? That's what we'll be discussing this week on Philosophy Friday. Hey philosophers, I'm Jonas, and this is Philosophy Friday, the place where we question everything, even the questions themselves. Don't forget to check out the question for next week so you can be part of the conversation. Today's question: when do the ends justify the means? This question gets at the heart of moral philosophy. We've all heard the phrase before, maybe in political debates, books depicting war councils, or even personal decisions. Lying to protect someone's feelings, breaking the law for the greater good, sacrificing one person to save many. Do these actions become ethical because of the outcome? This phrase is often associated with utilitarianism, the ethical theory that says the right action is the one that maximizes happiness or minimizes suffering. If lying, stealing, or even harming someone leads to a better world overall, is it justified? On the other hand, deontological ethics, often associated with Immanuel Kant, argues that actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of the consequences. In this view, lying is wrong, period, even if telling the truth would hurt someone. And then there's the real-world messiness. What if a government spies on its citizens to prevent terrorist attacks? What if a scientist fabricates data to push forward a life-saving medical breakthrough? What if a person commits a crime to feed their family? In some cases, the ends might seem to justify the means, but where do we draw the line? Let's see what our community has to say on the subject. Cindy R. says, I just can't think that truly unethical or evil means are justified by any end result. Josh R. says, I would say usually not. Lying or violence can be justified if done to protect yourself and or others from danger. But for the example of breaking someone's leg to cure cancer, I think it's probably not justified. Overall, I would say the ends do not justify the means because I think that's a way for people to justify negatively affecting people and or groups of people for their own personal gain. I think it's about weighing what's good for the greatest amount of people. Thank you so much for your comments. You're the reason this community continues to thrive. This is a tricky question, and one where I don't think there is one single answer. I think the reason it's tricky is because of how often we disagree with one another on what is the best outcome, like politics, for example. Some people justify illegal acts to save the country when they are either misguided or outright lying. Adding more confusion, everyone gets their news and information from other people with ulterior motives, and in so doing, manipulates perception of reality. I've mentioned this before. It's really helpful to get news from multiple sides, and I believe everyone can learn something from other people. Ground News is a useful tool to check our biases and help us get informed on subjects that we may otherwise be blind to. You can check out a link that'll get you a discount in the description. But that still doesn't answer the question, when do the ends justify the means? So here's how I'm going to answer the question. If you have to ask, the answer is probably no. If you're wrestling with a moral dilemma and think, this is wrong, but are my actions justified because of the outcome? You should probably just stop doing it. I realize this is perhaps an overly simplistic answer to an extremely complicated question, and to be completely honest, I do think there are times when actions that are normally considered immoral are justified because of their outcome. The world is just too complicated to boil it down to a yes or no, but I think it's an adequate rule of thumb, and it's in line with my normal advice to always question your own thinking. Always be willing to admit you're wrong. If we can do that, I think we'll be all right. Thanks for watching, and keep questioning. So what do you think? When do the ends justify the means? Comment below with your thoughts. And if you like this video, join our conversation for next week about whether state-funded lotteries should exist. On screen now is people like you who make these videos possible, and the best way to keep this community going is by joining the discussion in the comments. You might even be featured on next week's video.